Newcomb Construction is a family-owned design-build general contractor. We work using the concrete tilt-up method. We cast our own concrete wall panels on the job site, and then we tilt them up.
We like tilt-up. It's cost-effective and it's efficient, not only during construction, but also when the building's complete. It runs more efficiently. We had acquired a couple of buildings that Newcomb had previously built and liked the quality, liked their style. They're able to do a lot with tilt-up construction, and so we reached out to them on our first project and came back to the well. We were impressed with what they did. You work directly with Gus and Brett. They're very hands-on. They're willing to roll up their sleeves and work through the issues and come out with a great product.
What I really love about our job is working with the clients. They strategize and dream for their own company. We're part of it.
I'd like to welcome everyone to this latest edition of CapTime's Power Hour, where Wisconsin CEOs speak. As you know, because you're here now, we're experimenting with moving this program to the end of the workday instead of the beginning of the workday. And it seems to be working, since this is our biggest audience to date, and we started this series in the fall of 2022, so we're really gratified. Maybe that's because there's more of an opportunity to network later in the day, or maybe it's the alcohol. Either way, we're glad you're here. I'd like to take just a moment to plug the CapTime's upcoming CapTime's Idea Fest, which is just weeks away now. We have 3 governors on stage this year, J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, Tim Walz of Minnesota, and our own Tony Evers. We have voting right activist Stacey Abrams, and fabulous journalists like Maureen Dowd of the New York Times and Eugene Robinson, who was formerly with the Washington Post. It starts September 8th on campus, and you can learn more and buy tickets at captimesideafest.com. Next, I'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsors who make this possible. The Burrish Group at UBS, Newcomb Construction, WPS Health Solutions, the American Family Championships, the Network for Health Technology and Innovation, and Godfrey Kahn Law. And just let me, quick aside, Jennifer Hannon, the managing partner of Godfrey Kahn, helped put us in touch with tonight's speaker, which is very much appreciated and always welcome. If you have suggestions for speakers, you can email us, and we'd love to hear your ideas. And our partners, the Edgewater, Hinckley Productions, and Cargo Coffee. Tonight's speaker is Joe Hamilton, the CEO of Vortex Optics. You will hear how Joe transformed a small family retail business in Barneveld into a giant optical products company, producing everything from binoculars to rifle scopes to rangefinders used on the golf course and elsewhere. Our regular moderator is Mark Richardson, president of Unfinished Business Consulting and CEO of Gig Benders. Joe, I'd just like to thank you again for joining us tonight and being here. We really, really do appreciate it. And Mark, take it away.
Thanks, Paul. And let's thank Joe again for being here tonight, huh? Thank you. So, big crowd. For show of hands, first time attending this fine event. For show of hands. Oh, look at that, Paul. We have a bet. We got a side bet. I said, if we move it to the afternoon, we're going to get a lot more people. It's because of the alcohol and our speaker. So if you're new, there will be questions taken from the audience once I'm done peppering Joe with questions. So get ready. Someone will have a mic, and they'll come around. You can get a question asked. So for folks who do not know Vortex Optics, tell us about the early years. Tell us how it was founded, when it was founded. You know, how old were you when that happened?
Yeah, so when Vortex started, I was 22. I was just getting out of college, and I thought I was going to go to law school. And so I started to meet with some lawyers because I wanted to just understand what I was getting myself into. And maybe I just met the wrong set or the right set of lawyers.
There's a lot of lawyers here.
Yeah, right. None of them seemed very happy. And then one in particular said, well, the only reason I'm doing this is it pays enough bills so I can pay off my student loans. So I was already kind of iffy, and then that put me over the edge of saying, well, I'm going to hold off on 3 more years of law school. But my dad was getting ready to start. He had a Wild Birds Unlimited store which is still going. They don't own it now, and then he had an Eagle Optics retail store, and he was getting ready to start this thing that it would eventually become Vortex. So he said, "Why don't you come on board, help me figure this thing out, until you figure out what you want to do."
Right, right. So is this your only job then? Have you ever only worked for Vortex?
No, I have had several other jobs. Well, this is my only career.
Got it.
So I've waited many tables, bartended, I cleaned up, mink, on a farm. So I've done a lot of that kind of stuff as a kid. But yeah, only career really.
Got it. Well, sounds good. We'll have to talk to some of the attorneys afterwards, have a drink with them, and see how they're doing. I feel like
we pay them enough, so I think we paid them back.
I feel like we have to have therapy. We need some therapy. So yeah, you went from a small company. The early days, how many employees were you guys?
So in 2002, we were probably around 30.
Okay.
Yeah, and we've got roughly 450.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's some growth. Yep. So how do you go from a 30-plus employee business to almost a 450 employee business? And
I think the biggest thing is, I believe we make the best optics around from a technology standpoint, an innovation standpoint. But where I think that we really stand out is that service is our superpower. Okay. And so we try to have these really connected, high-touch service with our customers, with our dealers, retailers, we call them dealers, with our employees, and with really anybody that we work with. And so I believe, and I've seen it at Vortex, that a natural byproduct of that, of being better at service, is you're going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to get bigger, you're going to need people to support that growth. So our growth was always, we had nothing against growth,
right?
But it was always more as this byproduct of serving people in this, very high-touch, connected sort of way.
Okay. So there wasn't we got to get to this many employees by this year. We got to get to this many employees by such and such.
No, my dad is notorious for hating goals and long-term plans. He laughs about long-term plans.
Goals and long-term plans.
He does have goals, but he's got a little different framework about it.
Yeah.
But he always used to laugh about like 10-year plans and 20-year plans. And I apologize if you guys just went over this morning your PowerPoints on your 10-year vision. But he was always after going more directionally where we're going, and less about this ultra specific kind of like summit of the mountain.
Yeah, like less about the numbers, more about the experience.
100%.
Okay, because we had a prep call, and you're a big culture guy, and we'll get into culture in a little bit. I mean, but you make a product that is all about tolerances and sort of technical aspects.
Right.
So you would think operations sort of would rule the day, or would you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
So. Do you ever get sideways with your ops folks, or how is it that you have such harmony between sides of the business? If you get
so much harmony. Okay, so
are there any ops people there?
Well, sort of. I will say, or you mean in general? I was thinking our table. So I actually like to surround myself with people that do have really good ops sort of strength to them, because I don't naturally.
Right.
So I would say people who have those strengths and they utilize them at Vortex, they're often the unsung heroes, because so much of the business is very entrepreneurial. Yeah. So what I've found where it really works well, and I think that probably everybody's found this, is when there's a great deal of respect. So when the ops people have a great deal of respect towards that entrepreneurial spirit and the intuition and the creativity that people bring. And on the flip side, the people that, are very creative and intuitive, they have a high deal of respect for the other folks. Where I've seen it go sideways is where someone's like, "Oh, that's cute that you're creative and innovative." Yeah. Let the big
let
boys.
the engineers talk.
Exactly. Yeah. Or vice versa. It happens the other way as well. And like, "Oh, can you, who invited the ice queen," or something like that. Yeah. We don't say that, but that would be. I probably shouldn't have said that. But the point being is that or the no fun police.
Yeah.
That kind of a thing. But so if you have a high deal of respect for what other people bring to the table, they feel that.
Right.
And so when you disagree with them or they disagree with you, you're okay.
Yeah.
because you know you just have that level of respect is
Right.
there.
You know where it comes from. It's that diversity of thought.
Yeah,
Like,
diversity of
like,
thought. There
like
you go.
we'll get into that a little
Yeah,
bit,
right.
because we were talking about diversity, and Joe said, "Well, there's one kind of diversity I don't really care for," and I hung up on him.
Yeah.
And then when I called him back, I asked him to further explain
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I did hang up on him. I'm
right.
kidding. But you said, our world, sometimes the industry you're in, but the world in general seems to be sort of headed for automation and efficiency
Yes.
at like breakneck speed.
Yes.
And not that there's anything wrong with automation
Right.
or efficiency, but
Right.
tell us a little bit about the sort of the
Yeah.
struggle that you've got with that and just
Right.
things you have to think about.
Yeah, I think so. If you spend some time with me, you might think I'm anti-efficiency, and I'm really not. The thing that I've seen where that goes sideways is where you interject being efficient too quickly into the process, and what you do accidentally is you strip out the real value that you're bringing to the customer. In support of efficiency and in support of process, in support of you.
Mm-hmm.
At the detriment of the customer.
Right.
So that's where it switches. So efficiency can switch really quick, and now we're serving us.
Yeah.
Which you do have to do that.
Right.
But you have to get really clear on what is the win for the customer. What's the win for the end customer for us? What's the win for the dealer? What's the win for us? And then you have to the way I like to start is I like to start about what's the win for the consumer, and I don't want to think about the dealer or Vortex.
Right.
And because I think you get when you get them all together, it's kind of like Patrick Lencioni who talks about meeting stew. And you have a tactical meeting and a visioneering meeting and all these different meetings all in one meeting, and then you end up kind of having a crappy meeting. Same thing happens when we got to have a win for the customer, for the dealer, for us, and it gets really just watered down.
Yep.
And so if you get the real win for the customer, you're like, cool, we got that. Get the real win for the dealer, cool, we got that. Here's the real win for us, we got that. Now step back, and now you know what you got it, how you got it. You can be more creative because you know what you're going after.
Right, and you don't sort of kill the golden goose, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yes.
There's a term: pigs get fed, hogs get slaughtered,
Yeah.
right? And so don't want to be the hog.
No.
And when I hear you say efficiency, there's that, you can be too efficient. You can maybe have an automated voice teller help with a customer service issue, and maybe it should be a human, and maybe it should be less efficient but more human friendly. Is that kind of where you're?
Yeah, that's a good example. And I think, so here's one thing. You don't have to win on that. Like if you're a company, you're like, hey, we're going to win on our tech.
Yeah.
So we're going to win. Like, cool. Own it.
Yeah.
Like, own it, but you better have good tech.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and Apple's out there. They got a lot of money. Yeah. There's a lot of companies like that. So you're going to have the best widget. And guess what? At some point, someone's going to have a better widget.
Right.
And that's a lot of money, and it's very hard, and that's very stressful to always have the best widget. But if you have really good widgets and products, but also you have that kind of, a couple days ago it came up, a lot of the old school stuff, right? That high touch stuff that, you're writing thank you notes, you got somebody on the phone who's friendly and helpful and empowered to help and likes serving people. That's rare now.
Yeah.
That's more rare than AI. AI is everywhere.
Yeah.
All your answers on the internet, that's everywhere. So if you're leaning into that, it's already there. But if you're leaning into some of these more what I would call old school stuff, that's actually rare, and I think we all want to stand out.
Right.
So to me, I think it's a better way of being, but I also, incidentally, I think it's a more rare and unique way and easier way to stand out.
Right, and a better way of business.
Yeah, and well, here's the other thing too, is so if you want people to be really charged up that work for you, a lot of times they get charged up off of those things. Mm-hmm. They want to see their customers. They want to lean into serving the customers. They want to do these things that are unique, that are serving as a human to a human, and it charges them up. And so now you've got this supercharged employee, your customer's supercharged because they're like, oh my gosh, this business is more than just about money.
They care about me.
Exactly. Whereas that other stuff, it's very cold.
Yeah.
And it better be good.
But efficient.
But it's efficient.
Right.
So again, it's less about efficiency being like good or bad, and it's more about what's greater than. Mm-hmm. And I think what's greater than efficiency is actually connection.
All right. Right on. Now, we said care.
Yeah.
The word,
Yeah.
customer care. Now, customer service, a term, customer delight, right? But
Yep.
care, the reason I'm saying the word care is because it's an acronym at your place. And what's it stand for, and where did it come from, and how do you live by that?
Yeah. So CARE stands for Create a Rare Experience. I can't honestly tell you where the acronym came from. It came from somewhere in the mid-2000s, and we started using it. And the reason we started using it is because we already had it. We just didn't have an acronym for it. So that we got the acronym, we're like, oh, okay, this is it. But the whole idea is that you're creating, it's all about the experience that the other person has with you. And we want that experience to be a hyper-connected, human-to-human, personalized experience. It kind of has, it kind of gets you so you've got your radar up at all times. That would be what my mom would say. You've got your radar up at all times. To try to see how can I best serve this individual from their perspective. And that's what makes an experience rare. And so then that's where, so that's actually our mission is CARE. So our vision is to be the catalyst that improves the world through service. So service is our superpower. And how we do that is creating those unique, rare experiences that are very memorable, and we feel like that creates connection, and then that creates momentum.
Right, right. I told you he's a big culture guy, right? Like, we haven't even talked about product. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we can if you want, but I would, and I love our product guys.
Yep.
And I love our product. I do. I think we've got the best product from the tip of my toe to the top of my head. But I think you can shoot a deer with I won't say a name brand.
Yeah, some other brand.
You know, or you can watch a bird with a binocular with another brand. I don't think you should. I think you should use ours.
Right.
But you can, and every now and again you get a product that's just light years above the market.
Sure, just leapfrogs everything.
But usually that's not for long.
Yeah.
So we're all kind of within spitting distance from a quality, perspective. So like where we really shine, what we like to say is a lot of our competitors, the hero is their product. The hero is the product. You're cooler for using our product. For us, the customer is the hero. And so like we're cooler because you use our product.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So it's a little bit of a shift, but if you hire a bunch of people who end up thinking that way and operating that way, then it sort of manifests itself in all different kinds of ways.
Right.
So yeah, big culture guy.
And no, I appreciate it. I appreciate it because that's one of those things where you maybe can't put your finger on it, but you feel it.
Yeah,
You know,
you can.
everywhere you go, whatever the size of the organization or the company,
Right.
You may not be able to sort of name it,
Right.
but you feel it. If you're there for a little while, you start to feel it's how people move.
Yep.
It's how they communicate.
Yes.
Right. It's how they respond to the customer.
Right.
And to each other. Right.
Yeah.
It's everything.
So I hear that all the time from people who visit, or people, they write emails, they see me at events like these, and they're like, we had this tour, and we were, as soon as we walked in, Robin, was just like the most pleasant person on the planet. And then from people walking in the halls, everybody's smiling, they're offering, can they help? And you're right, that is like, it's an intangible, and you won't find that on a metric sheet, most likely. But it is powerful, and it's a real thing.
Yeah. It's hard to measure, but it's easy to feel.
Thank you. Yes.
You've gone from 30 some employees to almost 450. How many of those employees are in Wisconsin?
I want to say about 440, 435, 440. We only have about 10 folks that that live out of state.
So it's just a handful of people elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
just a handful.
And of those of the Wisconsin employees, mostly on site?
Yes. Yeah, most people are on site. There every day. We'll allow a lot of people to have, kind of like a hybrid thing, but for the most part, we like them there. We think a lot of work gets done in outside the margins. So if you schedule your day with all these meetings and that's all you get done, a lot of happens, in the hallways. A lot happens in the cubes and things like that. If someone's got to do some deep work and they're like, hey, a copywriter's got to do some deep work, it's like, hey, get out of here. We get it.
I need to focus.
Right.
I need to...
So they have those opportunities, but yeah, I feel like it's very difficult to have a strong culture if everybody was external. I'm sure that there's some people who figure that out, but for us, it feels natural to have everybody there.
Yeah. No, and I think we were faced with that with COVID.
Right.
Right. I think it was something that probably a lot of companies and a lot of CEOs never thought about.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, 2020 happens.
Right.
Which was the year you were made CEO. Is that correct?
Yeah, my dad.
Did he do that to you, or did he do that for you?
I don't know. I will say, so another thing about my dad is, so he doesn't like these big announcements and these like dates. So he kind of had transitioned things over, and then when it happened, it was like it already had happened. So I think it would have been different if it was like this big change. But yeah, it was technically February of 2020. So
so nothing going on in the world.
Yeah,
then.
I do remind him of that a lot. Yeah.
So hey, guess what? You're running the show now, and oh, by the way, it's
Yeah.
a global pandemic.
Yeah, I kind of threw up a peace sign and flew down to Florida.
Yeah, we like everybody here, but now nobody can come here.
yeah.
So like
Exactly.
not any challenges for you in your first.
Oh
6,
yeah,
9 months?
it was. I mean, everybody kind of remembers. It feels like it was not that long ago, but I guess it was 5 years ago. But yeah, I feel like the first few months were like the roughest, just because you had no idea what was what, and so. But it was cool because we rallied and we had that I forget what it's called, but this exemption because of some of the military work
Sure.
that we had.
Yep.
But I do remember going. This is like my favorite part is I do remember going down to the warehouse. Because we have to ship product, right?
You got to be there.
So you got to be there,
pick and
right,
pack
in that area.
Yeah.
And I remember just kind of getting everybody there and said, "Hey guys, here's the situation. We do have this exemption, but we didn't. It was essentially what I was going to ask them was like, hey, I'd really like for people to stay. If you're not comfortable staying, I understand. I couldn't even finish my sentence, and they were like, we're all in.
Yep.
Like we're gonna be here, and so like you got nothing to worry about.
Done.
So it was like. I mean, it was a really cool, moment to just, and that's a lot of what we're like with our customers and our dealers and our employees, and we've got a saying that we say, "We got your back," and so that is a nice little saying, but it doesn't really mean anything unless you actually have someone's back,
Right.
and so for them to have the whole company's back, it really meant a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like. Like you said, everybody's on site, and that's how you build your culture.
Mm-hmm.
You've grown considerably. You're bound to continue growing.
Yep.
Not that we're going to put a number on it or a
Yeah.
timeline, but you're going to
Right.
grow. So where do you find your talent? How do you attract talent? Sort of
Right.
your employer brand.
Yeah.
I feel like we're having a commercial right now for it. 'Cause
Right.
how many people want to go work for Vortex?
Yeah,
Right
yeah,
coming
you
off
got
of
to
this?
shoot
You know,
guns.
so like where do you
Yeah.
how do you grow?
So, yeah, I think so. This kind of dovetails a little bit, I think, with the kind of the diversity thing that you brought up, and I'll kind of go there. So, I think diversity is a really great thing, but there's a type of diversity that I don't think is good, and so diversity of thought is good, diversity of races and sex, that's wonderful, but I think diversity of values in the same organization is a recipe for disaster.
So just so they don't write a crazy headline.
Yes. Yes.
So tell me what you mean, because
Yeah.
we actually agree on this, right?
Yeah, we do, yeah.
So after I
Right.
hung up and called him back,
Right,
and I said,
right,
okay, what do you
yeah.
mean? Turns out we agree. So it's the values part, right?
Right. So I think what that means is so and to the hiring point, like we hire for belief.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to hire people who believe what we already believe. We want to hire. We call it the alignment effect. We want people who are already aligned with us from a values perspective. They don't have to call it the same value, right. But they've got the same belief system. So for instance, for us, profit is important, mm-hmm. Okay, mm-hmm. but serving people is extremely important, okay? So that's a value, right. That's a belief. We want people who are already serving, and they just do it. They love doing it. And so we're going to ask questions about that before we actually get to the skill portion. Mm-hmm. But when you get somebody who already believes what you believe, all of a sudden, you don't have the friction that you have in these organizations where, let's say you've got somebody and you're hiring, and you hire them and they're extremely skilled, but they play a zero-sum game. They're like, I'm going to show up, like this whole care stuff, like that's cool for you. Right. I don't care about that. I don't care about my coworker. I'm going to ball out. I'm going to do a great job. You're going to pay me like it. I'm going to go home and I'm not going to think about this place until I come in tomorrow. Right. But I'm going to kick butt and take names, right? But then you got somebody else in another department. They also want to kick butt and take names, but somebody in their department had a spouse who had a stroke and fell off a stool and broke their back. Yeah. And they're going to be like, okay, well we got to do our work, but like we're going to rally around that person, love on them. We're going to get their spouse a special recliner, and we're going to do all these things. If you have somebody who's playing a zero-sum game, they're like, well, it's not my spouse. Like that sucks, but you know, but like if I was worried about everybody who had a situation like that, I mean, I'd go crazy. I just got to do my work.
Right.
Well, and if they're in the same, like that's a problem.
Yep.
I think.
Yep.
And I think what happens often is in organizations, you get friction and you're trying to like mediate it, and it's an alignment issue.
Yeah.
It's like their value is saying it's this, and the other person's value is saying this.
Right.
So the secret, in my opinion, is not to hire talented people and indoctrinate your values into them.
Right.
They're already adults. That doesn't work very well.
Right.
Hire somebody who already has
Right.
your values inside of them. So hire for belief. And so I do think that, like, again, diversity of thought, great. Diversity of people, great. But diversity of values, where I've seen it, really good people, really talented people,
Right.
but diametrically opposed on their values,
Right.
it just ends up being this.
Yeah. So you don't have to be like-looking, but you have to be like-minded.
In the values
In your values,
standpoint,
right?
yeah.
And you care to serve, and you,
Right.
you care about your coworkers, you care
Right.
about the customer,
Right.
you know, and
Yes.
and you want to do
Right.
want to do right by yourself, but you also want to do right by everybody else.
Exactly.
And
yes.
And that it's I work in the career coaching game, and I often say, you know, be yourself, right? Don't be anybody but yourself.
Yeah, everybody else is already taken.
They're already taken,
Yeah.
right? And if you're not yourself and you go interview and they hire you, well, who did they hire?
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Well, and here's another thing. A lot of organizations aren't themselves. I mean, is there any organization that
say
says,
more.
well, is there any organization that goes, you know what, we make really good stuff, like service, not really our thing. Not really our thing. You know, if you want to get a hold of us, we're going to like spend lots of money on a really expensive AI chatbot.
Yep.
You're not going to get to talk to a real human being.
Yeah.
That whole phone number thing, that's kind of a joke. You're just going to get in a phone tree. Nobody says that,
Right.
but that's how they operate. So I actually think, in a lot of ways, I think the onus is actually more on the employer. I think it's more the employer's job to say, like, this is who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not involved with nearly as much of the hiring as I used to be.
Sure.
But when I was, especially if I had somebody who was more ops related, I would kind of come, and they probably think I was trying to, like, get them to leave.
Yeah, sabotage the whole
And I
deal.
really wasn't, but I was trying to serve them by saying, like, hey, you have a really important job, but it's going to be probably extra difficult here because it is like, you're not going to be the tip of the spear.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be the one that has to come alongside, respect everything, and kind of help the chaos navigate through.
Yeah.
And so it was my way of trying to serve them. And so I actually think the companies are the ones that often hoodwink the employee.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But really, both should be doing that. And so my zero-sum guy I was talking about earlier, like, go find a zero-sum company.
Right, because there are many.
Right.
Right.
And I'm not saying he's got the wrong values.
Right.
You know, I'm just saying you can't work here.
Right.
You know, but go work for somebody who wants that
Right.
culture.
It's about being mismatched for the,
Right.
for the person, for the job,
Right.
for the company.
Yeah.
So you know, you, like you said, this has been your really only career,
Yeah.
not only job but only career. So you've probably done pretty much all the jobs.
Yeah.
You know, and so, what has been your favorite job up till this point?
that's a good
in the,
question.
You know, because we talked about the difference in
Yeah.
sales, right? You've got your
Right.
your people who sell to end users.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got your people who sell to the dealerships.
Yes.
The retailers.
Right.
Different kind of sales.
Totally different.
So,
yes.
so what has your experience been in different roles within the company?
Yeah, so when you're talking to an end consumer and they call, you're trying to help them get to the best product. You're trying to maybe help them actually understand how to use it better. But when you're talking with a dealer, so a retailer, especially as those retailers get larger, so the first group, when they're talking to end consumer, you can talk about their hunts all day long. You can talk about their you know, you can hear them be like, oh, I'm going this, you know, antelope hunt,
Right.
you know, and you just you know, you'd be just having fun.
Or their golf game now.
Or their golf game,
You're in that
right?
business?
Yeah, you know, here's what I did on, you know, hole 7, and right. But when you're talking with a dealer and you're talking particularly with an owner or a buyer, they're thinking like margins, they're thinking turns, they're thinking, you know, what's your supply chain like?
Yep.
So it's a very different thing. So if you go into like a really big buyer or a retailer and you're like, you know, hey, here's my phone, look at this big monster I got, they're gonna be like, what, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
I want to talk about
like,
the
I don't have time for
point
that.
of, point of service display. I want to talk about
Right.
this. Yeah.
So we found with certain individuals is like if you find out really quick, you're like, oh, this person needs to be talking to end consumers
Right.
because that's where their passion is. And then you'd see somebody else and be like, oh, their passion is like deal making
Yeah.
with retailers. And so, they would end up kind of migrating that.
Yeah. Both in sales, but in the wrong, flip-flop.
Exactly. Yeah. But so actually my favorite job is being the CEO. Because I get to tell everybody, no, I'm just kidding. But I'm kidding. I think the reason is because I like to empower people. I found I like helping people either get to a spot or help hire or help empower somebody so they can hit home runs. It's fun to hit home runs, to get big wins individually where you're the kind of quarterback of it, or God, do I have another obligatory sports analogy? But but I find it's actually, and maybe part of it's my age now, I find it's more fun to see somebody else light up and to see them hit a home run, give them a high five, and watch them walk down the hall a couple inches taller. And so you get to do a lot of that as the CEO, and so I really dig that.
Because you are a person, you're one of one, right? So
Right.
but if you can empower,
Yeah. Then you multiply.
Yep.
It's that law of multiplication.
Right.
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So that's the fun side of the business, right? That's like you said, if you can empower somebody and
Yeah.
you get to gas them up when they do something good. There's some tough times, right?
Yeah.
You got tough decisions to make, and okay, what are we doing on this product, or what are we doing on this particular supply chain? What are we doing with this particular employee?
Right.
So tell us a little bit about maybe the sort of the not the darker times or the tough times,
Yeah.
but just more of the sort of somber stuff you have to do sometimes as a CEO. Big conversations you got to have with employees.
Yeah, I'll tell a story and I'll talk a little bit. I mean, the hardest thing is always when you've got a hard thing with a person. For me, anyways. You still have to do it, but it's a really hard thing. And so it reminds me of a story like 20 years ago. It was the mid 2000s, and it was the first tough conversation I was going to have. So I was like over some salespeople, and we had a guy who was really great. He was more that consumer type of salesperson, great with the consumers. I mean, they loved him. He just did a phenomenal job, but he started to have a lot of personal issues, and he was missing work. When he was on the phone, he was good, but he just wasn't on the phone so he's kind of dropping the ball. We were a small team back then, 35 people. Yep. So it's very obvious when someone's not pulling their weight. It was for a while. We'd been having conversations, but now this was kind of like you're at a 9 out of 10 and 10 is we part ways. So I went in, as I often did, I went to my dad's office to talk to him, because I really wanted to get his advice on not only how to have the conversation, but how to have it in a way where he understood I still really cared about him. Yeah. So, as I often did, I went in there and I told this to him. I had my legal yellow pad, and he said, when's the meeting? I said, meeting's tomorrow. And he goes, okay, let's move that back. Move the meeting back a week. So I was okay, move meeting back 1 week. Okay, what's next? And he's like, so we'll call this guy Jim. That's not his name. But he says, all right, so for the next week, when you're driving into work, and when you're leaving work, and when you're eating your lunch, and maybe when you're working out, every single extra chance you get, I want you thinking about Jim. You know a little bit about his personal situation. I want you thinking about that. What's it like for him to go through that? I want you to think about, you kind of get the idea, right? Like for this whole week, I want you spending a lot of time thinking about Jim. I'm like, okay, lots of time thinking about Jim.
Jim, wake up, Jim.
And he goes, so he finally gets to this point. He says, okay, so when you get to the point where you really, really care deeply about Jim, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get there. I promise. And I said, and then what? And he goes, then you go have the meeting.
Right.
And I'm like, then go have the meeting? We're on point 2. I thought this was like a 10-point step, thing. Like, where do I sit? How do I stand? How do I shake? And, anyway, so he goes, Joe, here's the thing, is he said, the thing is he goes, if you get to a place where you deeply care about somebody, the care is just going to naturally come through. Right? It's going to naturally come through. He's going to feel it. Right. And you don't have to worry about all these tactics. And so in that moment, what I realized was I had come in looking for tactics. Yeah. And he had given me this principle of care, not maybe credit or experience, but so I went to that individual and we had a really good conversation. And I don't know if it was just because of that conversation, but he turned it around. He's still with us today. So in the dark times, I think, and we could go on for hours, over 25 years or whatever it is. I think the main thing is you got to keep this principle of caring for other people, and not still do the difficult things, but without removing the humanity, without removing the dignity from it, and that's hard. Yeah. It's easier to capitulate and say, out with the humanity stuff, let's just do hard stuff. Right. And so I think to kind of do both, that's what I learned then, and I've tried, and our leadership has tried to lean into those things, throughout. But it is really hard when you have the people stuff. Yeah. Because you care.
Well, and Jim's still with the company.
Yes.
And so
he just celebrated, he's just went a couple years ago, hit a major milestone. I'll just say it's plus 20 years. I don't know who's going to watch this.
Well, so he's been around not quite as long as you have, but he's been around a while.
Right, yeah, for sure.
Good for Jim, and good for you. It sounded like you had tactics in your head, and your dad said, no, here's the strategy.
Well, and so for him, it was always principles. Yep. Everything was about principles. So he would, when I would talk to him, if he felt the tactics were coming through. Yep. And so ironically, what would happen is, this is kind of one of those greater than things that we talk about in our Vortex table over here, is on one side you got principles, and in one side you have tactics. Okay. And I think of the greater than symbol. But the interesting thing is, if you over-index on the greater than thing, then that greater than sign actually becomes an arrow. Because you have to have tactics.
Yeah. I mean, at some point.
Right. Yeah. But if the tactics are derived from a principle, then you're in a good spot. Because I think principles are things that don't change. Right. So, yes, we all have to be aware of change, but I'm actually more interested in what doesn't change. Yeah. I'm more interested in a timeless strategy. Right. And so if we're on top of this roof, and because the principles and laws are very similar, if we're on top of this roof and walk right off, we all know what's going to happen, right? We're going down.
It's a gravity issue.
Right. But what if you don't believe in gravity?
Right.
Well, gravity doesn't care.
Yeah.
That's how principles are. Right. Principles don't care. Principles are. They're part of the framework of the world, in my opinion. And so I actually want to adjust myself to the principles of the world versus, going head on with them. Right. And then let those shape the tactics.
Right. And that's consistent, right? That goes back to the care.
Yes.
The acronym, it goes to sort of tying yourself to the values. Values, you care about what you care about. Yeah. And how you care might change, and technology around how you care and get to the customer might change, but caring about the customer is the center thing.
Right. And I think the other thing is similar to the Jim thing, he felt it.
Yeah.
And people feel it. People can sniff out authenticity you know what. I mean, they can sniff it out. So, but when people know you actually care, that kind of changes a lot. Every now and again you get a bad apple, and you can't let a bad apple ruin it for everybody. But for the most part, people want to be seen. People want to be valued. Right. They want to feel important, and the irony is they are. You know, and they decided to work for you. And so when that person feels the care that you have for them, it changes everything.
Right. I did some snooping after we chatted. We did a prep call about a month ago or so, and went online and careers at and looked around, and you got to make that more prominent, by the way, because I think so I dug a little bit, but I found the video. Dogs. It's a dog-friendly environment. Right. For those of you taking notes who said you wanted to work for Vortex, take these notes. Yeah. Dog-friendly environment. Yeah. Food trucks on site. Yep. There's a daycare. Yeah. Right? Talk about this daycare. Yeah. It's maybe not owned by, but it's operated basically for your employees, right?
Right. So I'll tell you one thing. So this is something I learned because I kept calling it a daycare, and it's a preschool.
Yeah, it's preschool. My bad.
That's a big deal if you're in that world, by the way. So
someone's mad at me.
Just a tip. No, you're good. But so let's talk about the preschool because that's a really fun one to talk about. So my dad had the vision when we moved out to Barneveld from Middleton that we were kind of in no man's land in the sense that Dodgeville was a little bit further and larger, Mount Horeb was a little bit closer and larger, and Barneveld's pretty small. He could kind of see the demographic of our ages going down, which means a lot of people having kids. Yep. And so he decided to build out a preschool and then rent it out. Okay. So that's what we did. And ironically, also, I think it was in close to 2020, So we did that, and the kids were getting really good care, but it wasn't really working from the tenant perspective from a financial standpoint. And so I was having discussions with them to graft them in to the business. They would just become part of the business. And then a lot of the parents caught wind of that, and they said, hey, our kids are getting really good care, but, and I won't go super into this, but the experience for the parents isn't necessarily the greatest. Right. So I think you maybe need to rethink how you want to go about this. Yep. So with about 8 or 9 months until that lease was due, or that lease ended, ultimately, with a lot of care and thought, we decided that we weren't going to renew the lease. And I went, is Lindsay over there? She's not here. Okay. So Lindsay's head of HR, and I went to her probably 6, 7 months to go, and I said, hey, we need to figure out how to...
Yeah, how do we do this?
How do we do a preschool? And she took that on with several other people on her team and a few other folks, and things just fell into place. They got after it, and they created Little Buffalo's Preschool, which is our preschool that has, I think, in the summer around 150 some kids, and then I think during the year have 110, 115 kids. And they're all Vortex kids. It was kind of a combo, and we grandfathered in those folks, but then eventually it got... Ashley's got 3 of them over there.
That's
she's
awesome.
going to have her own wing of the preschool here if we do another edition.
That's awesome.
So she really is glad I pointed her out.
You guys are, you guys are solving a lot of the challenges as it relates to workforce. Right. And I mean, you're kind of out in the middle of not nowhere, but like you said, we're certain ways from this city, we're certain ways from this city, so we're going to need certain things.
Right.
So you're solutions oriented. Really cool video, by the way. I've seen a lot of them. It was really cool. Yeah. And I couldn't believe you had a preschool, not a daycare, but a preschool on site. Yeah. And the food truck is not a small thing for folks. You know,
because we don't have. So we were in the Middleton Industrial Park.
Right. You were sort of nothing around you.
Well, in Middleton though, we had everything.
Yep.
I mean, you could do your Walgreens run, you could do your food run, and you could get a run in.
And then you moved.
Yeah, and then we moved, and there was like hardly any food. There was a couple of food options, like Ope House, and there's some really good spots, but there's not many.
Yep.
So for the HR team to bring in all these food trucks, it's great for our people.
Yeah, right on. Thinking about the people. We're gonna take some questions from the audience pretty soon. I see the hand went up. Bryn, yep, she's back there. She's doing her thing. Questions for Joe from the audience, or else I'm gonna ask him all kinds of crazy things like sports teams and is he a Brewers fan? And how about those Brewers, by the way?
Yeah, how about
It's crazy.
Crushing it.
I'm a Cubs fan, so this is not a great thing, but they're crushing it. Got a hand up over here.
Yeah, what's your vision for the future?
Yeah, vision for the future. Yeah, so right. I think one of the things that to fulfill our vision, to be the catalyst that improves the world through service, I think one of the things that I would like to do, not only personally but our team, and we're leaning into it, is I would like to help other businesses. They don't have to call it what we call it, but I would like them to help them, teach them how to do care, okay? And not in a prescriptive way, by the way, more in a principle-based way, using stories that we have or stories of other businesses that we see doing it. I see, like you mentioned earlier when we were talking about, the world is going at this breakneck speed towards AI, efficiency, automation, and again, I don't think those are bad things. I think you have to be aware of them, lean into them in some ways, but it's stripping the humanity and connection from, in my opinion, the world. And so I'm not talking about Wi-Fi, right? That we're very connected on Wi-Fi, but I think that people are very disconnected from their coworkers, disconnected from their consumers, and when we inject all this automation and all this efficiency, we're doing it in a way that's actually making that worse. And I think it's a multifaceted thing, but I think one of the things that businesses can do is they can be very intentional about injecting the care and humanity and the connection back into business in a way that doesn't just make it more fun and more interesting, but actually drives the business. So for us, I think that's what's empowered the bottom line to be good. So it's not just being altruistic.
Touchy-feely.
Exactly. Yes. You have to find ways to do it that actually, your flywheel spins from the financial standpoint as well. And I think that we've done a pretty good job of that. We want to learn in this journey too, but I think that I would love to have our team inspire other companies to do the same.
Cool.
Hey, Joe. Great presentation. My question is, if you could share with everybody, you know, there's so many wonderful family-owned businesses in this, you know, greater community, and you guys have found a awesome roadmap of not just transition of ownership to, you know, the boys in the family, but also you guys are all working together and had to kind of figure out your own rail and then, you know, make it successful. And so what's some of the advice that you could share with the group here in regards to transition of you know, mom and dad to the boys, and then how does that work and how was that successful?
For sure. So, thanks, Jim. So there's my folks, Dan and Margie. So they started at Wild Birds Unlimited in '86, which became Eagle Optics, which became Vortex, and they had 4 sons. So I'm one of those sons, and then I have 2 older brothers that are 19 months older, that are twins, Sam and Dave, and then a younger brother, Jimmy, who's about 14 and a half, 15 years younger. So I think one of the things that helped a lot is, we just have really good parents. You know, we had really, and Jimmy, I know you know them, but like my dad was the example, and my mom had all of the you know, interpersonal skills for days. I mean, if you wanted to talk to somebody that would see you and make you feel seen, known, loved, and also was great just interpersonally, like that's definitely my mom. So I think just one, having that example. 2, all of the 4 boys worked in the business when it was just a Wild Birds Limited. So some of the fun jobs were, you know, carrying seed out to people and filling up seed jugs. And I remember being like 6 years old, and Jimmy wasn't born yet, but my older brothers, and my dad he would always have a van that would have the plywood in the back. So all the seats were stripped out. So you just had the 2 front seats, everything was stripped out. And he said, "Hey boys, like, come on, get in the front seat." And it was like Huey, Dewey, and Louie. And he just like, you know, did the seatbelt, and then we just took off to like Iowa, and we picked up a bunch of like bird bass.
Yep.
And we had to like help him with bird bass, and then and my dad gets up at an ungodly time at 4 a.m. So you're driving down there, you're picking it up, and you're driving it back, and he's going to work that day, and you got to work there. So I think just having that, it was like you kind of ended up just getting this really blue-collar work ethic. And then I think as we got older, I think similar to the hiring for belief, we kind of all believed the same things. We had different skill sets. That helped. Yeah. So my older brothers are very engineering based. They've got a lot of the soft skills, but their brain, like, they're going to create the products. So often I was the litmus test if like, like I remember they were doing a 0 stop, and they had to make it really easy. And that's a really technical process. And so they would always bring it to me, which I thought was interesting.
So if you could do it,
I was the
then anybody
test
could do it.
For, you know, and the first time they came to me, I couldn't figure it out, and they go, "Oh, okay, Joe, thanks." You know, so I had to go back to the drawing board. But so I think just the fact that we had different skill sets worked, and I think, and there was a high level of respect that we talked about earlier. I think that helped. And I think that we always knew we couldn't let, if there was ever a disagreement, which we didn't have a lot, we knew that if that manifested and got worse, it was just going to have a trickle-down effect to the entire business. So it was like, we didn't even have to talk about it. It was like, hey, we've got to squash this, because otherwise everybody's going to feel it, and it's not fair to everybody. So I think those were the things that worked really well. I think the hard part of a family business is, and again, I think we navigated it really well. I've done a lot of work with family businesses, done a lot of family business governance conferences that'll go like a full week long. But I think the challenge with a family business, because everything's got a good and a strength and a weakness, is your family can just trigger you just by their sheer existence. You know what I mean?
Just walking in a room.
Yeah, just walking in a room. And so I think that didn't happen a lot, but those are some challenging things. And I would say if somebody's in a family business, I think one thing you've got to go in with it is you have to magnify the strengths and you have to minimize the weaknesses. And I think if, and that's really what we have to do in any relationship, because nobody's perfect. And if you over-index on the weaknesses, you end up coming up with contempt. And if you do any research on relationships, usually this research is around couples and marriages, but contempt is the worst of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. Once you have contempt for somebody else, it's kind of a death spiral. So I think we did a really good job of that. But I think for family businesses, I would say bring your A game, have respect for the other person, magnify their strengths, and minimize their weaknesses.
Sounds like a good recipe.
Yep.
Good question, Jim. Good questions. Well, I see two here, and one there.
All right, thank you very much. Hey, Joe, it was a very good presentation.
Thank you.
My name is Dan Gear. I'm the new executive director for 100 State. So we're a community of entrepreneurs and innovators.
Oh, nice.
And one of the things I wanted to say that I think was really important is talking about the importance of not over-optimizing. And so I think that was something that you rarely hear, and so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely.
The second thing I would say, and I found incredibly inspiring of your talk, is how you really talk about your organization being a values-driven organization. The question I would have for you is, how do you use it? It seems like those values that you're using are for your workforce. How do you use those values really to support our local economy and to support new innovators and new entrepreneurs?
Yep. Good. I mean, that's a great question. Thank you for that. I think as it pertains to that, I don't really know if we have any formal programs that we're doing. And in a way, we do have some formal stuff that we do. A lot of that is with military. A lot of that is with law enforcement and with schools. So we did sponsor some, I think 4 schools with Dave Ramsey's entrepreneurship program, which is ironic because a lot of schools turned us down, even though we were willing to pay for that, which is sort of another story. But so that's something that we've done for the entrepreneurship thing. I think what happens more often with us is we do a lot of support in a very kind of organic spirit of the law way versus a letter of the law way. So, and that kind of comes directly from my dad. So we kind of think with that mission of care that we're going to intersect with a lot of people that are going through a lot of different things and need help in a lot of different ways. So, for instance, this might be a way you and I after this we could talk, and that might be an opportunity for us to help. What sometimes we do it, but I get a little nervous about it, is when we have this kind of big formal initiative, and then we want to kind of ham jam it through. And what I find is it ends up being really inauthentic and very ineffective. So again, I'd love to talk more about this and learn more about your program and see what we could do to help. I think the only one specifically I can think about is those high schools, though, with the entrepreneur classes that we do. I think there might be some colleges that we work with, Southwest Tech and a few others, but their names aren't coming to mind. I hope that answered your question to some degree. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Yes, please do. Yeah.
Joe, thanks for coming today. A great discussion.
Oh,
I'm going to actually build off of the last question.
Yeah.
A lot of what I heard today, with whether it's internal with your company or your customers, you're very community rooted.
Yep.
And my question is when you left the Wild Birds to start the optics, was it with purpose to stay community rooted with your divisions and the optics, whether it was the scopes or the groups that you tailor to, or did you have an aha moment after you got started with the successes? We're here because we're community rooted.
And when you say community rooted, do you mean like the hunting community, birding community? Is that the kind of community you mean?
In your organization, it sounds like you're a community. You care for each other. That's a community. And then you're in those communities, whether it's hunting, golf, or birds.
Yep.
And was that purposeful? Like, we're going to either be successful or not, but we're going to stay community rooted, or you kind of got into it and then it was like, we're successful because of those values.
So I think I can tell you about it, and I think that might answer your question. And I'll try to do this in very Cliff Note way. So my parents started a Wild Birds Unlimited store, okay? And what happened was people would come in and they would say, hey, Dan, you're helping me get in a feeder and you're helping me get the seed, but I really want to see these birds better. You know, where can I get binoculars? And so this is 86, so there's no internet for those of you. I know you said it was a little younger crowd. So there's no internet, and so he's sending them to the camera company, which is still around, or he's sending them to American TV, which sold binoculars at the time.
Yeah, also not around.
Right. Yeah. But a couple months into it, he's kind of like, man, you know, people keep asking me for this. Maybe I could sell it. And so this is actually one of my favorite stories, because this was more my younger dad. Now he'd probably be like, oh, it wasn't quite like that, Joe, but it was. So he was like, he called the companies up and he said, hey, I have a lot of people asking for binoculars. Can you send out your rep? There's a lot of these companies who ended up being our competitors. And they were like, I'm not sending anybody out there. Like, I've never heard of Wild Birds Unlimited. I mean, do you guys sell, like, parakeets? Like, what, you know, like, I'm not sending anybody out there. So he's like, okay, all right. So he was a little bit more, just stiff upper lip back then, or whatever you want to call that. So he ends up going to American TV. He buys 12 binoculars. He comes back to his store. He clears out a case. He marks him $1 over what he paid. Okay? And the whole idea is he knows that's not a long-term strategy. That's not what he's worried about. He's worried about, like, can I sell it? So sure enough, he sells it over the next couple weeks. Then he calls those same companies back, and he says, hey, here's what happened. I sold all these binoculars. So they're laughing on the phone, and they're like, well, Dan, technically you violated every one of our dealer agreements. But impressive. I'll send my rep out, right? So anyway, so he gets into binoculars. And this is where I'll try to kind of go a little quicker this time. So he starts selling binoculars. What he realizes is, I can't really make any money off of this. The margins are really slim, and I see my rep coming, and he's got multiple price lists that he's thumbing through, and I'm not getting the best price. So he realizes I got to sell more. So he comes up with the idea, I'm going to have a mail order company, and I'm going to call it Eagle Optics, and I'm going to create this catalog, and I'm going to go to birding festivals, which are a real thing, and I'm going to drop these catalogs off, and I'm going to sell binoculars. And so that boosted it up again. Well, then what would happen is the Wild Birds Unlimited franchise would grow, and all the other Wild Birds Unlimited stores would say, hey, Dan, I hear you're the binocular guy. Can I get binoculars from you? So then he'd sell them the binoculars, but there was still not enough margin. People that are small retailers, if you've ever done that, they like to keystone stuff. 50% margin is what they want. Not markup, margin. Okay? I sell it for $100. I paid $50 for it. I made $50. So they still weren't making a lot of margin, and they actually really, my dad said, I'm selling you for what my cost is. Right. And they're kind of frustrated, so he says, I got to have my own brand. Yeah. So he makes En-ROADS to end up creating his own Eagle Optics in-house brand. And he starts wholesaling back to the retailers, takes every negative that we have as a retailer, turns it into a positive. Then we get to 2002. Now he wants to have a brand that he can sell to everybody, not just the bird watching community, not a house brand. We started like 7 different brands, like Bucky Badger binoculars. I thought my kids were going to college off of that. It didn't work out. And we had all these different brands, and for 3 years we sold that, and in 3 years we figured out, oh wow, there's a lot of hunting and shooting stores that want this stuff. We were getting more people in our business that were into hunting and shooting as well as into birding. This is just me being really transparent. Like me and Seamus, who's been here with us forever, like the hunting industry is a little bit more of a masculine industry. So the sales were there, our kind of passion was there, so we added that to the mix. Then what would happen from 2005 to 2007, these retailers would say, hey, we love you guys, we love your margin, we love everything about you, but, and you're my number one binocular line, my number one spotting scope line, but my number one category is rifle scopes. I need you to get into rifle scopes. Right. So we get into rifle scopes. And I could keep going on, and there's a funny story about golf rangefinders, how we got into that. I think one of the things that we've been really good at is observing, which is the most highly underrated skill to figure out what people want, is observation. Observing what people are saying directly, but even more important, indirectly, marrying that up with data, and pivoting and trying experiments. And so that has kind of dictated, I think, those communities. But again, it's been a very natural, organic way. If you look back and you're like, how did you start a Wild Birds Limited in 86 and become the largest sport optics brand in the world? You'd be like, it makes no sense. And before that, my dad was a dentist, okay? Makes no sense. But if you get into the trenches and you follow, it's just a series of pivots. I don't know, does that, okay, gotcha. Thank you.
That's a great question. It's an even better answer.
Oh, thanks.
And you don't have to speed up because that brought us full circle. Now we understand.
Yeah.
Now we understand how that went from that to this.
Yeah.
And that great new facility. It's awesome. I don't know where we are on time. I'm terrible with that. 5 minutes? Oh, all right. We still got some time. See, you could have made it a longer answer.
Yeah, right.
You could have had a longer answer.
Yeah.
Or we have time for 2 more questions. 2 minutes. 1 question.
Okay.
See how quickly I did that math? Last question. No pressure.
Right.
All right, the real big question: are you responsible for the Quick Trip in Barneveld? Yes or
I
no?
am not. I'm not. What's going on with the Quick Trip?
Well,
in
I mean,
Barneveld?
it's amazing. Like,
Oh, is
thank
it?
gosh, right?
Yeah.
But no. So over in the showroom,
Yeah.
one time, and the guy convinces me to buy the cheaper spotting scope.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I was, telling our intern, like, listen, sometimes you need to just help people with the point of what they need today,
Yeah.
so we can prepare them for tomorrow.
Right.
Right? And that's one of the things I really enjoy about your company. And, I can see that as just a people thing, but it seems like it's a larger company thing. And so
Yes.
how is that instilled as a company sales value
Right.
for you?
Yeah, I think so. It was something. So one of the things with my dad is he did a lot of things very intuitively, really well, and then a lot of my job was basically putting that in words and frameworks to try to get that law of multiplication. But one of the things he would always say, he was actually good at speaking. He's very stoic, so you kind of have to be around him a lot to catch it. But he would always talk about the long term. It's always about the long term. So when you help somebody get the right spotting scope, but it's less money, right? Well, it's like, well, first of all, that's a good way to serve that individual person. But I'm not looking to just have a transactional relationship. I'm looking to have a connected relationship for the long term. And so so again, when you hire for belief, and you also, that's who you promote, and that's, it's not fun to talk about it, but eventually you could get to the point of, a termination. It's because you've really got teeth to those values, and one of the values is long-term. One of my favorite books, I recommended it recently, is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. I think he does a great job talking about playing the infinite game versus playing a finite game. And again, I think a lot of businesses and customers would be better off. And the other thing about businesses, I remember I'd get orders in the early 2000s, and I'd tell my dad about it, because I was like, I wanted to spike a football. I was like super pumped. And his first thing he'd say would be like, that's great, just hope they pay their bills. And I'd be like, what? I'm like, why wouldn't they pay their bills? But that's another story. But one of the things is he'd always be like, hey, we don't just want an order, we want a customer for life. Right. So one of the things that we try to do unsolicited is we want to serve you so good, you say, hey, I'm Vortex for life, or I'm a customer for life. But it's all about the long term. You did? Okay, good. Well, hey, it worked. See, it's not just, it does hit the bottom line, but yeah. I love it. You're clearly a regular because you called him Muck. I knew it instantly. I'm like, okay, he's one of our people.
Return customer, for sure.
Yeah,
For
exactly.
sure.
Yes.
Well, I think that it's going to take us to our time, and I want to, first of all, thank all you newbies for coming, and the old bees. Thank all the bees for coming, and keep an eye out for the next speaker announcement. That'll be coming up on the new, really cool website, by the way, the new higher horsepower, well done website for our next speaker. And join me in thanking Joe for today's session.
Thank you. Thank you.